Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wet Shaving with Angelo. I'm Angelo, and today's going to be a good day and a good shave. This week in the Rich Man Shaving Group is what we call Vintage Week, where members are encouraged to use vintage shave gear of any kind, whether it's vintage razors, brushes, etc., etc., etc. And today's shave is going to be a mostly vintage shave. So for today's gear, I'm going to be using brush-wise the Heritage, let me see if we can get that in. The Heritage Collection Shaving Brush, which is their replica of the Ever Ready 200 with the synthetic knot. For my razor of choice, I'm very happy to own this. The Gillette Senator, made in 1938 to 1939 with a crystal blade in it. Now, for those that don't know, the Senator razor was the last make and model of the first generation of twist-to-open razors Gillette manufactured. It was only made between the years of 1938 to 1939, and generally can be hard to find on eBay for a reasonable price. I was lucky enough to win this in an auction on eBay for $50 plus $5 shipping and handling to have it shipped to my door. And for those that have been looking for Senator razors, you've probably been familiar with the high prices these usually go for. Like on average, a Senator razor, if you don't find a good bargain on eBay, can typically run upwards of 100 plus or more. So I was lucky to get it for $50. So that's the razor I'm going to be using. For my shave soap of choice, it's going to be a vintage one. First off, vintage Avon shave mug from the 70s. And I'm also going to be using a vintage Williams mug luxury shave soap. I've used this soap one previous time, the vintage formula of Williams mug. Very good stuff. A lot better than the modern formula of Williams mug shave soap. The modern formula does not hold the lather as well as I would like. From what I remember using when I started wet shaving, Williams mug was one of the first soaps I used, and it would dissipate very quickly, it would dry out, didn't last long at all. But the vintage formula of Williams mug lathers beautifully, and the lather stays for quite a while. So I'm going to be using that. And my aftershave of choice, if you're familiar with Douglas Smythe of Phoenix Arts and Accoutrements scented soap and aftershave set of Black Bot, you should be familiar with this vintage aftershave. Let's see if I can get it in. Black Belt. Black Belt is what Black Bot was based off of when Douglas Smythe made his version of it. Like Black Bot is basically Douglas Smythe's version of the vintage aftershave Black Belt, which actually Black Belt was made by the same company as High Karate, Lemming Pfizer, but didn't get nearly enough attention from Lemming Pfizer because they put most of their advertising money behind High Karate. So I'm going to wet the face and get ready to lather up and start the first pass with the grain. So how's everybody doing today? Having any good shaves? Anything you want to talk about and mention in the comments? If you have the Senator razor yourself, tell me how you like it. This is my second time shaving with it. First time I shaved with it yesterday, and it was a very lovely shave, very comfortable, fairly close. We got the face nice and wet. Now I'm going to wet the brush. Should get a little excess water. And like I said, if you want to try Williams mug soap, I would recommend looking into buying a vintage puck. Because the vintage stuff lathers way better than the modern stuff, as you'll soon see. Sorry for all the clanking, don't mean to do it, just part of the beast, the nature of the beast. Nice and creamy lather. Let's just get a little more load time. There we go. There we go. There we go, Angelo. This is what Williams mug should be like. Now, mind you, the modern formulation of Williams mug is very dirt cheap. You can buy a puck of the modern stuff if you find it for like $1 and change. But even at $1 and change, the modern formulation makes you feel ripped off. Whereas the vintage stuff, you can probably find a vintage puck of Williams mug in an antique store, thrift store, or if you go the eBay route, you'll probably wind up paying $10 or so for it. Well worth the investment. This puck of Williams mug I have was part of a gift that my friend Noreen gave to me last year for my birthday from an auction she won at a silent auction at a thrift store somewhere. And it was a part of like a whole setup of shaving items related. And I hadn't tried Williams mug soap till just recently, and it does lather very nicely. Now it's time for the first pass with the grain. Even though there's not a lot of slickness, there's just enough slickness to make the shave comfortable. And it helps the razor glide fairly easily. For the shave, which is what we all like to have in our soaps. So, I also mentioned in the comments if you've had experience with either the vintage or the modern formulation of Williams mug soap. And what your opinion is of it. Let us know in the comments. To me personally, the vintage formula is way better than the modern stuff they put out today. The lather is easier to build. The lather lasts longer. It doesn't like the new stuff they put out with Williams mug. Dries out way too quickly. Way too quickly. Like I would lather my face, and halfway through the first pass, the other half of the face that should have lather on it disappeared or dissipated completely, forcing me to re-lather the other half that hadn't been shaved. It was just a pain in the butt. Okay, that was the first pass. We're going to re-lather, re-wet the face, and re-wet the face, re-lather, and go for the second pass across the grain. But yeah, the vintage formula of Williams is way better than the modern stuff, as I just said earlier. A lot creamier, more slickness to it. It was like they got it right back in the day, but nowadays they just cut corners everywhere. And this puck of soap is from roughly 1979 to 1983, from what I understand. When I asked questions in some of the shave groups on Facebook, that was one of the answers I got. This is for those that are keeping track of what day of the week it is for Vintage Week. In the Rich Man Shave group, it's day 2. And as you may know, if you followed some of my past videos, I'm a big fan of vintage shave items. Be they razors, brushes, mugs, aftershaves especially. Blades, I don't use vintage blades because you never know what you're going to get with a vintage blade. You don't really know how well it was treated over the years. Like if there's I know there's guys out there that love to use vintage blades. And I know there's the ones from the 70s. Like the Persona 74s, the Schick Platinum blades are widely regarded as some of the best blades out there from the past. But for me personally, I like using modern blades in my vintage razors. Just a matter of personal preference for me. Really easy to rinse the lather out of the razor. Very easy to rinse off the lather, since it's an open comb. And with this soap, it's very easy to get the lather rinsed out of the razor. This razor is just phenomenal to shave with. This is all my second use of both the Williams Mug Vintage Shave Soap and the Sheraton is also a second use. And I'm really enjoying the Sheraton. And it's October, which means it's OC month in the wet shaving community, which for those that are not aware of OC month means open comb month. Where us wet shavers are encouraged to use our open comb razors and whatnot. Well, that was the second pass. Time for the third pass. Against the grain, re-wet, re-lather. I definitely feel some post-slickness after re-wet in the face. There's definitely plenty of slickness left over from this vintage soap, which is great to have, which is good to know. And this vintage this vintage Avon shave mug, for those that are wondering, was originally like a case, or was part of a decanter for a bottle of Avon Deep Woods aftershave. Like the bottle of Deep Woods was in a plastic bottle, and it would go into this mug. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this mug is from 1977. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's what I think it's from when I read the sticker on the aftershave container. Just a fantastic lather from this old soap. This soap that is easily anywhere from 36 to 40 years old, roughly, give or take. Just a fantastic lather that doesn't dissipate as fast as its modern counterpart. I know some watch shavers have a good experience with the modern stuff of Williams mug, but me personally, I wouldn't use the modern stuff anymore because there's so many great artisans out there, and so many great vintage soaps as well, and the vintage formula of Williams is a champion compared to its modern day counterpart. Just my personal opinion. You're free to if you disagree, I understand. It's just that I think a shave soap shouldn't have to require special treatment or special tricks to lather with ease. It should be wet brush, build up lather, and proceed to apply lather. It shouldn't be like, as the Paulich says in Paulich films, it shouldn't be like a cryptic code you have to decipher to get a good lather out of a decent lather out of the soap. Just a fantastic shave today. Just gonna use a stippling pencil ever so slightly for a few touch-ups before I put on the aftershave. Barely any damage, almost no damage at all, but better to stop the bleeding now than wait later when it shows up. Very, very enjoyable shave, I will say, with the vintage Williams mug. Now I'm going to rinse the face and apply the black belt aftershave. Vintage black belt aftershave from the late 60s, I believe it's from. Let's get all this excess soap off our face. Okay, shake it up a little to get the ingredients mixed up. There we go. And since today's Monday, I call every Monday for me is like a musky Monday almost. This is definitely a classic musky aftershave that few people hear about. If it wasn't for Douglas Smythe mentioning it and recreating it in Black Bot. Love the burn of this aftershave. Well, everybody, have a good day and have a good shave, everyone. Goodbye.